The new Fire Emblem Heroes 2.0 update allows players to now refine weapons and forge new ones, imbuing them with new special abilities and effects using refining stones or divine dew. Despite many of these new additions being discussed by the Fire Emblem community, I feel like the guard bow has not really been discussed much. So therefore, today I'm going to talk to you about 4 main points. What the guard bow is, the types of archers which should use the guard bow, why Jakob, Trick or Defeat, is the best option for the guard bow, and the drawbacks and viability of Halloween Jakob using the guard bow in things like Arena, for example. So what is the guard bow plus and how is it obtained and what does it do? Well, it's obtained by upgrading Setsuna's Assassin's Bow Plus. Keep in mind that if you want any of your other units apart from Setsuna to have the Guard Bow Plus, you would first need to inherit the Assassin's Bow Plus onto your unit of choice, such as for example the Kumi. You'll then upgrade it via weapon refinement into the Guard Bow Plus. If we look at the special ability of the Guard Bow Plus, it provides 6 defense and resistance in combat when attacked by a ranged unit, and therefore is synonymous with the distant defense free seal or skill. We can come to the conclusion that is utilized on champions which are suited for enemy phase engagements. From this, we've narrowed down what sort of archers are suited for the Guard Bow Plus, and the answer is the enemy phase archers. Therefore, we can automatically rule out the player phase archers, such as Bride Cordelia, Bow Lin, most Brave Bow users, like Brave Bow Setsuna for example. We can then come down to categorizing the rest of the enemy phase archers into 3 categories. High defense, such as Gordon or Leo, high resistance, such as Innis, and moderate defense and resistance, such as Faye or Jakob. As we know, Guard Bow Plus provides armor and resistance when attacked. What we want to do is stack this effect to mitigate as much damage as possible. Therefore, we must use distance defense skills and sacred seals in conjunction with the Guard Bow Plus. If this is then done correctly, you would then get plus 18 defense and resistance when attacked by a ranged unit. So, in our first example, we're going to look at Gordon, which is a defense type archer. If you ran a triple distant defense build, you would go up to 50 defense and 32 resistance. With these stats, Gordon is able to survive against most neutral and unbuffed archers, but he can still die to heavily merged and buffed archers such as Brave Bow Lin. Furthermore, due to his low speed, enemies can easily double him and as a result trigger Moonbow, Lunar, Aether on him, ensuring that he dies. Furthermore, due to his low resistance, most Grundblade mages will one-shot him, and if they do not kill him in one shot, they will then double and secure the kill on their second attack. So we're going to move on and skip over Innis, and we're going to move on to Faye. The reason why we're going to talk about Faye is because Innis is essentially the exact same as Gordon, except that the roles are reversed. Instead of having high defense, he has high resistance, which makes him very effective at killing mages, but he's very weak against Brave Bow users, and therefore he has the same weaknesses as Gordon. So that's the reason why we're going to talk about Faye, because Faye is well balanced when it comes to her defensive stats. So if we look at Faye, we can see that when attacked she gets 44 defense and 49 resistance, which is actually pretty good considering she'll be tanking both bow units and mages. And she can in fact survive unbuffed Brave Bow users, as you'll see in a second. But due to her low speed, she gets doubled or quadded very easily, and as a result she will still die even though she does have triple distant defense effects activated. So here's a quick calculation which would be seen in the arena of a Brave Bow Bridal Cordelia. On the left hand side, the Bride Cordelia is unbuffed and is barely able to survive, but doesn't manage to kill Faye. But on the right hand side, Bride Cordelia is buffed and manages to kill Faye. So one question you might ask me is, okay then, I'll make sure that Bride Cordelia doesn't get buffed and therefore Faye will survive. But you're forgetting one very important aspect. If you were going to use someone like Faye in the arena for the sake of killing meta units such as Bride Cordelia, Bolin, Reinhardt, you need to take into account that you'll be most likely be playing on advanced. As a result of that, you'll be versing teams with more merges than your own. So it's highly likely that the Bride Cordelia will not be neutral. The Bride Cordelia will most likely be plus attack, have +5 merges, have a Sacred Seal, all of which I've not put on the Bride Cordelia in these calculations. So again, it's very high chance that Faye will die in pretty much all viable situations if you were to play in arena. You may then just say, okay then, why don't you just use Bowbreaker for the other archers? Well, that kind of invalidates the need for a triple distant defense build, because the whole point of the build is to invalidate every enemy phase ranged unit in the game. Bowbreaker will allow you to overcome archers, but you'll still run into trouble with green, red and blue blade tome mages, and as you know, you cannot run 4 breaker skills, and it's for this reason that Faye is not a good option. As you can see from this data already, this is a great improvement as all flaws have been corrected. Gordon, for example, had very high defense but very low resistance, and he was extremely slow, so he could be doubled. Faye was the same case. She was more all-rounded, but again she was very slow and could be doubled. Innis had very high resistance, but he could easily get killed by any Brave Bow user. Here we have Jakob, an armor unit with extremely high resistance and defense when attacked. Due to wary fighter, he's not able to be doubled, so even if there was a very heavily buffed Blade Tome mage, they would be unable to kill him anyway due to not being able to double him. Jakob can then retaliate, and then when it comes back to the player phase, they could finish off the Grundblade mage. If you wanted to then take it one step further, you could run Jakob in an armor team and give him an additional 6 defense and resistance, bringing him up to 57 defense and 56 resistance. And here we can see just exactly what I've said, but just a breakdown of where his stats come from. But let's look at Jakob at his maximum potential. That's assuming boons, banes, and merges and refinement. So what we just saw was a Jakob which had no buffs, no IVs, no merges, no summoner support. So what happens if we look at a Jakob which was fully built with summoner support, merges, and the correct IVs and weapon refinement? Well, if we in fact looked at a Jakob trickle defeat and we did the calculations, we could come to the stats that Jakob, upon being attacked by a ranged unit, would actually have 66 armor and 65 resistance, which effectively means that they're unkillable. And that's the reason why Jakob is the best unit for this, because they cannot get doubled and they're virtually unkillable. So what is the summary of Jakob? Well, to start with, he's an armor unit, so that means he has higher BST in comparison to, for example, Faye, Innis or Gordon. He cannot be doubled due to having wary fighter, which is exclusive to armor units. As we've saw, due to his 51 defense and 50 resistance when being attacked, he takes very little damage. Coupled with the fact that he cannot be doubled, the enemy team will not be landing that many specials on him like Lunar or Moonbow. He can also obtain armor buffs such as Armor March, Ward Armor, Hone Armor, etc. to further elevate his fighting capabilities. If you want to use Jakob, there will be some disadvantages. One of those is the fact that you need a lot of investment. If you wanted to give him distant defense a slot skill, you would need to then sacrifice a Celica or a Performing Arts Olivia. Keep in mind, if you want him to be at his best possible potential, which is at plus 10 merge, that will take a lot of orbs to actually carry out to get 11 copies of him. Keep in mind, he's still prone to being killed by Raven Tome and Triangle Adept Free Mages, but keep in mind that Wary Fighter does help him in this case. As I stated, he is a limited time unit, which does hurt getting lots of copies of him, and he also does move slowly due to being an armor unit, but keep in mind that can be mitigated with armor buffs. If you're to use Jakob competitively, the best way to weed out his weaknesses is to use him in an armor emblem team. A team which can provide Armor March, Hone Armor, Gold Armor, and Ward Armor would greatly beneficial Jakob's defensive capabilities and will allow him to tank pretty much every ranged unit in the game, including Triangle Adept free Grun Raven Mages, assuming he was fully built and buffed. Anyways, that's it for my video, so thank you for watching and see you next time.